Okay, so I identified a mode of communication for this app wherein the screen layout is relatively static. And this screenshot contains all those elements of that screen layout. It contains the shortcut buttons here on the left along with their navigation arrows. It contains the word tree and even the past word little button over here. Last word selected for the trunk of the tree. It includes the message bar up above and the chat bubble down here. I brought the screenshot up in Paint because that allows me to do some pixel level measurements. And I remember from, where's my other Paint window? I identified a set of those objects that I cared about, and I went to the effort of kind of choosing approximately how much space I need to set aside for those objects to give the user access to them. But I enclosed each one in a rectangular shape and numbered it. And I'm going to use those numbers to keep track of which measurements are associated with which objects in the application. So that if I see something doesn't look quite right, I can check my measurements and then go back to the correct line in data.scad and update those values there. Okay, I'm just going to use Paint to measure the opening that would be necessary for this message bar up at the top, but the same exact process would be used for every other object that you want to expose. So let's start with object number 1 up here. And what else is there to say? Something that may not be immediately obvious is I want the x-coordinate, which is the distance from the edge of the screen here to this lower right corner, and the distance from the edge of the screen up here to this lower right corner. That's the y-coordinate. So x is horizontal measurement, y is a vertical measurement. Because Paint counts everything from this upper left-hand corner, here's 0 x and 0 y, I'm measuring down from the top instead of up from the bottom, like I would be if I were, like I probably would be if I were measuring the app directly with a ruler. I just have to remember I did that. Also, the screenshot, let me see, we go to the actual screenshot here. The screenshot is 1024 pixels wide by 768 pixels high. And this number over here, the number of pixels that determine the height of the screenshot, is important for the KeyGuard SCAD program to know later on, so that it knows how to properly interpret what is a pixel, how much space in the actual application does that account for on that tablet. So we'll remember that number 768. We'll also remember that we're measuring from the upper left-hand corner rather than the lower left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner. So Paint makes this pretty easy to do. I want the x-coordinate here, which extends down from the edge of this shape. In fact, I can just put my mouse right here at the edge of the shape and read. I'll be reading down here in this region here. I can read the first coordinate down below, which is 19. So that's the leftmost point of this object, and the bottom point of the object, I just put my mouse here, oops, get it to stay without jumping, and that's 179 pixels to this point. Then I can measure the width of the object. By the way, I'm recording all these measurements on a data sheet that I can then have ready access to when I put the data into data.scad. But what I'll simply do is I'll take this measurement, subtract it from this measurement, and then I'll know the width. So it's about, let's see here. If I look back in the lower right-hand corner, lower left-hand corner of the window, it says 1004 pixels minus 19 pixels. I put that in calculator, determine what that distance is in pixels, and that becomes the width of the object. The height of the object is, what did I say, 179 here? I think I said it's 179, something like that. 179 pixels. We're looking again at the second value in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. 179 pixels minus 37 pixels. So whatever that calculation is, that's the height of this object in pixels. And I record that information. Also, I can see right away this is going to be one of those hot dog shapes, a rectangle with semicircular ends to it. And that could be horizontal like this one or vertical. There are other objects that might have a vertical hot dog instead. So I'm going to repeat that process for every one of these objects that I care about, every one that I've identified that is important to the use of this app in this particular communication mode, and I'm going to record it on my cheat sheet for later use. I just want you to notice one thing here, that there are some objects where I'm not going to simply measure the exact points of things like what is the bottom of the chevron, what is the top of the chevron, how far is this edge of the chevron in. Sometimes I will want to do things like just for symmetry, create a hole for it, an opening for it that aligns with other things. They all have the same x coordinate, for example, in this case. So do these guys, they all have the same x coordinate. But if I made my hole as small as this chevron, it would probably be very difficult for whoever's using this application to get in there and press that chevron. I don't know exactly where the sensitive parts of the screen are, but I'm going to expand that shape a little bit larger, both vertically and horizontally, just to make that access a little easier and to keep it symmetrical with some of the other shapes. But I'm going to repeat the same process with every one of these and fill out the rest of my little cheat sheet.